Vidhi Centre for Legal Policy, an independent think tank, briefing book launch on the legal reforms for the state of Maharashtra, in which the book suggests legal reforms in the areas of securing the wildlife corridors of Maharashtra, conserving the grasslands of Maharashtra, aligning the legal frameworks for protecting trees in Maharashtra, maintaining public parks and other open spaces in Mumbai, promoting responsible pet ownership, reinforcing heritage conservation in Maharashtra, preventing fire accidents in Maharashtra buildings. Now, if we talk about inclusivity, in which legal reforms are suggested in the areas of reducing hurdles for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in obtaining social status certificates, safeguarding the right to health of prisoners in Maharashtra, regulating preschool education in Maharashtra, making Maharashtra cities more inclusive for persons with disabilities, enacting a state social audit law, empowering urban local bodies to ensure holistic urban planning, strengthening wards committees and area sabhas in Maharashtra, repealing obsolete state laws are among the 15 legal reforms suggested by Vidhi Centre of Legal Policy on the occasion of briefing book launch in the presence of various dignitaries like Honorable Justice Gautam Patel, Mr. Bittu Sehgal, Dr. Amita Bhide, and retired Honorable Justice Sujata Manohar, former Judge Supreme Court of India, former Chief Justice Bombay and Kerala High Court as a chief guest. So come, let's take you on the glimpses of the briefing of book launch, where the dignitaries discussed about some legal reforms suggested to give citizens which could shape India's future in a brighter way.
I have an unusual assignment today to release a briefing book of Vidhi Centre for Legal Policy. This year's briefing book, which is aptly titled Maharashtra Moving Forward, 15 legal reforms for the state, has legal solutions to 15 problems which urgently require solution in this state and also possibly in other states. So you have 15 causes of action put before you for appropriate action by a group of lawyers. The suggested legal reforms in the form of briefs are in 3 categories: sustainability, inclusivity, and robust institutions and up-to-date laws. Now, as you look at democracies around the world, it becomes apparent that they are not working as they should. For the voice of reason and the voice of common sense to be heard, and for proper policies for the welfare of people to be framed, it is not enough that the population of a country casts its vote and elects lawmakers or law enforcers once in so many years. People need to remain well informed and vocal at all times, expressing their views. There also needs to be appropriate machinery through which their views can be considered and given effect to when required by elected power holders.
Climate change is real, and it's real not because UN experts or UN bodies or expert bodies have told us that it's real. It's real because we are facing it. We are facing it. The sweltering heat outside, the 2005 floods, the 2021 floods, the air quality in Bombay earlier this year. My question to you is, all of this would be or is justified in the name of development. So my question to you is sustainable development really too idealistic? Is it even possible for development to be sustainable?
Well, I would put it like this, that this word sustainable development itself has become a very suspicious sort of utterance. Sustainable for whom? Inside each one of our bodies there's an ecosystem. Without the bacteria, without the viruses, we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't be alive. We probably wouldn't be human. It's a misunderstanding when human beings were given this grey matter between our ears. I think we believe now that we have the power of the gods we invented. And there is just one rule. We go to the court and we know that the Constitution will tell us this and that and the other. But even the Constitution itself is subject to a certain rule, which is the rule of the biosphere. We don't have any control on that. I can say that this book should fly up. It won't fly up. Gravity will bring it down. So there are some inevitabilities. Climate change that you asked about. Climate change is the clearest evidence we have today of market failure. कुदरत जो है वो अजीब अलग सी किस्म की चीज है. वो आपकी नहीं मानेगी, मेरी नहीं. जो होना है सो होना है. And one thing with nature is with the biosphere, Your Honor, it gives you no judgments. No judgments at all. It only gives you warnings and then consequences. So this is something that human beings will need to accept, whether those human beings are politicians or whether those human beings are journalists or whether they are activists.
Mr. Sehgal just said is that this term sustainable development, we've just used it, in a slightly elaborate fashion, while describing our topic. But the word sustainable development is a fairly vague term. You can get away with pretty much anything by using that term in any conversation. However, this is not possible in a court of law. I don't think in a court of law you can just drop these terms and get away with anything. In a court of law, there are hard questions asked and you have to rule, one way or the other. And sometimes those questions are easy questions and sometimes those questions are hard questions. Should a judge rule in favor of an infrastructure project that is, supposedly going to solve, Mumbai's pressing traffic, transportation issues, if that project is, eating up our open spaces? As a lawyer myself, and I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is curious as well, to know, how does a judge approach, a dispute like this?
You have to hear both sides. You see which is in public interest. If possible, if you can balance the two views, you try and balance it. Otherwise, then you go by the rules. Whatever the law is, you go by that law.
How we deal with these cases, I should tell you this as a story. 2 or 3 different types now. And there are principles that are well established in environmental jurisprudence and environmental law. You will have somebody come and say, stop this chemical plant at Patapara. So the first thing that begins to happen is the judge, because we have this body of law, we reverse the burden of proof and we ask the chemical plant to prove that the chemical plant is safe, not the petitioner to prove that the plant is unsafe. That's the way environmental law works. It has not evolved to the point where the chemical plant can say, look, I've met all the standards. I have nothing more to prove. Now tell the petitioner to establish why I'm not good. A lot of what happens in environmental law is actually impressionistic and is conditioned by what that particular judge thinks and what the issue is. If it's in a remote part of the country, it may not get the same attention as an issue that's on the judge's doorstep.
Your foundation, Sanctuary Nature Foundation, has an entire program, I think Mud on Boots, which is focused on grassroots, level conservationists. And it wants to sort of take the environment back to the grassroots and keep the citizen, keep the community, at the center of conservation efforts. So from a very top-down approach to environmental policy making and decision making, have a much more participatory approach to environmental conservation and policy making and decision taking. So if you could share some experience with us about this entire program, and also do you think that this sort of participatory approach to conservation is more effective than, say, a top-down approach?
And the first is, I think, so far what I've heard is basically that when we think about environment, when we think about sustainable development, it is like a collective. I think the unfortunate reality, perhaps a human reality, as somebody would put it, is something that the world that we have constructed is a highly unequal one. It has multiple divisions. The second dimension of this, I think, is really I hesitate to call it only class divide. Because in Mumbai, informal settlements, you just do not have the poor as defined by the poverty line kind of a thing to stay in informal settlements.
Sir, my question is to Justice Patel. Sir, you mentioned about the President Draupadi Murmu's words. So recently we heard that she has requested the law minister and the judges to look into the process after a verdict is given. I'm talking about the implementation. So what is your take on that? How should it be addressed?
Our take on that is obviously that has to be done. It's an implementation of orders of the court. If he finds that orders of the courts are not being implemented, it's a straightforward thing to do, and it's the blindingly obvious thing to do.